Hello and welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast, the show that brings you the top minds in the fitness industry who share their knowledge and experience to help motivate and inspire you to take your training to the next level. I'm your host, Tom McCormick, and today I'm joined by Damian Lees. Damian is a personal trainer, online prep coach, and pro natural bodybuilder who placed second at the World Championships. In the interview, we go in depth on how you can apply the principles and strategies he's learned from years as a top-level competitive natural bodybuilder to your own training. These tips will help you maximize your results. We discuss the mistakes he's made in the past, how to balance family, work, and social life with elite performance, what holds some people back from making the progress they are capable of, kitting out a home gym, and much, much more. So, without further ado, it's on with the podcast. Hi guys, so as I told you in the intro, I'm joined today by Damian Lees, who's a personal trainer, online prep coach, and WNBF Pro Natural Bodybuilder. Damian, cheers for joining us.
Happy to be on. Thanks very much for having me.
Brilliant. I think first things first, let's get the listeners a little bit of background about you. So why don't you tell us about your journey into fitness, maybe how you went away from it and came back to it, just so they can start to relate.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'm getting on a bit now. I'm kind of like 42 next month, so I've been around for a while.
Someone older than me, that's brilliant.
I started training around about 1991, so quite a while ago. And it was basically my stepdad had taken me to the gym. Gyms back those days were kind of like spit and sawdust type of gyms, but they were brilliant. It was before the internet, before social media and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I saw pictures of like the bodybuilders, Rich Gaspari, Barry DeMay, Gary Stridham, and then you got like obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, that kind of era, made me just want to develop a physique. So I entered my first competition when I was 15, a little bit prematurely really, because I didn't know how to train properly or eat properly. But it was an experience I absolutely loved. And then from there, I just kind of like just really got into the bodybuilding side really. Competed in quite a lot of shows. Back then it was NABA, EFBB, which is now the UK BFF. And back then there wasn't that, well, not that I know of anyway, there weren't many natural federations. I think there might have been the AMB at the time, but the circle I was in and the gym I went to and everything, it was like I'd never even heard of any natural feds and stuff like that. So basically I competed from a teenager up to juniors around about age 21, 22. And I found that back then it was like, even though I didn't train or eat properly or right, even though I got results still, I didn't get results as much as I could have done. And back then, because of my age as well, I felt like I needed to live my life a little bit more. And then when I was about 21, 22, it was kind of like, I just kind of like lost the love and interest for bodybuilding. So I just started going out a lot with my friends, drinking, not necessarily, developing a bad habit or anything like that. It was just kind of enjoying myself, meeting girls, that kind of thing, like you do at that age, really. Yeah. So I still did sport, still trained a little bit, did a lot of Thai boxing. It was just bodybuilding was kind of, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I couldn't even tell you who at the time was Mr. Olympia because I just didn't follow bodybuilding at all. I just kind of fell out of love with it really. And then back, it was 2007 where a best friend of mine was back into bodybuilding and he competed at the WNBF Manchester show in 2007. I went to watch him to show me support, and then as soon as I saw the show and the physiques and everything, that was it. It was just like reignited my passion and enthusiasm for bodybuilding. And then 2 years later, I decided to compete. I did quite well, and then just came on from there really. But I'm so glad I got back into it because now I'm doing coaching, training, what I do for a living really, what I love doing now.
Yeah, and so now it's a central part of your life, obviously. Yeah, it's your business and your passion. So that's fantastic. I think also it's interesting because a lot of guys listening in probably assume that people that have reached your level, just like robots, you always want to do it. You love it. You never go through those moments of drifting away. So it's interesting to hear that story. And actually, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. So can you pinpoint exactly why you lost the love for it? Was it because you'd been pushing so hard so early, it'd become all-encompassing and you just needed to sort of relieve that valve a little bit? Or
I felt like I was missing out on life as well, and it's kind of like, even though I'd still kind of like semi-diet for shows and stuff like that, I just felt like I was missing out a little bit. And just over time, it was kind of like, right, if I really want to move on now and do really well in bodybuilding, I need to put on a lot more muscle. And at the time, I thought I didn't want to go down that route of taking gear and stuff like that. So back, from the age of 22, I thought actually I'd rather just kind of take a break away from it. And I don't know, there was just nothing there. It was kind of like, it's a bit like if you're in a long-term relationship with someone and all of a sudden you think, actually, there's just nothing there. There's no kind of feelings or emotions towards it or passion.
Right.
And that's when I thought, I mean, some of my friends still lifted weights and stuff like that. But I just kind of like just lost it completely in terms of that. But I found other enjoyment, as in going out, stuff like that, and also doing some Thai boxing. And I still weight trained, but it was take over training type of thing, really,
Yeah. Whereas now you've found a balance for it, because obviously, you're making progress in the gym, competing at an incredibly high standard, running a business, and you're a family man too, right? So
yeah, this is it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's fantastic, and something also a lot of guys listening in will be like, they may not want to step on stage, but they want some of the results, but they also want that balance. And so, can you give some insight into how now you're able to achieve that without it becoming everything, and that you feel like you have to live like a monk, and everything revolves around the gym?
Yeah, it's once you get into good habits and plan your day ahead, it's quite easy to do, really, because we all have to eat, we all have to sleep, and even if you're a recreational trainer, you fit your workout in, and you've got to take prep. Yes, it's serious, but you've still got to eat and do all those things as well. So it's a case of just cooking a lot of meals in advance, scheduling your time and being efficient with your time a lot better as well. I mean, back years ago before a family, I actually had a lot more time than you think, really. Whereas now you've got to be so good at time management. So what I would do is, for example, if I need to do my cardio, I'd just get up earlier. So I get up earlier than my son and my wife, so I'd be able to get the cardio done without disturbing the routine or anything like that. And I'd just be able to manage my time a lot better, really. For example, every Monday, I'm off with Max, so I have him for the day. Right. So when he has his sleep, that's where I have time to maybe do a little bit of online work and stuff like that. So it's just a case of, I use like a whiteboard. I just plan ahead my day of exactly what times I'm going to be doing this. And then my missus as well, she's really supportive. And then if the things she needs to do as well, she'll just tell me in advance, right, I need to do this on this day. So I'll say, right, okay, I'll just train earlier or train later, or I might have a rest day. So it's easily manageable. But I do believe that if you're passionate about something, you'll find the time to do it.
Yeah.
And there's no excuses then. It's just ticking those boxes on a consistent basis, and you'll get there. I mean, I must admit, I thought since Max came along, I was thinking, right, how are my preps going to be? Is my sleep going to be affected? Is my physique going to look worse? But I managed to compete in 2 successful seasons at my best ever, really. Right. So it's just getting the work done and organising your time, really.
Yes, absolutely. So one key thing that comes across there is planning, basically. It's doable, but it takes some upfront planning, and that's a key element. And if you do that, you can put the pieces of the jigsaw together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you just got to be smart with your time, really. And where people say they got time to do 30 minutes cardio and stuff like that, and they haven't got maybe kids or they've not got any stressful jobs or anything like that, then it's just an excuse, really, that they don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas, for busy people, obviously they've got those competing factors in their life, and it's just, to some extent it's prioritizing, and the other thing is being as efficient as possible. So now, of course, you work, quite in person with a lot of people online, prepping people, and presumably, a lot of those guys and girls have busy lives away from the gym. So, do you find a big part of your coaching is giving them those strategies and guiding them through how they can fit things together?
Yeah, absolutely. I ran a Skype session actually with a group of 4 who are competing at a show in May for the first time this year, and I basically got them just to fire away questions or any issues they're having, anything what's on their mind basically. And a few things was like, right, well, my missus wants me to maybe occasionally go out for something to eat. So because I'm in prep, I can't do that, can I? I was like, well, yeah, of course you can. But you've just got to plan ahead. I mean, the closer you get to a competition, I mean, personally, I still ate out on occasions right up until a few weeks before this contest. Mm-hmm. But all I did was I'd contact the restaurant and say, right, I'm on a special diet and I just need maybe a plain baked potato or rice, boiled rice, steamed vegetables and plain chicken breast or something like that. And then because you've been dieting for long enough and experienced enough, you know what your portions are like. So you could easily just go out without disrupting, your social life and your family, because life does go on, and you've got to make as minimal disruptions for your family as you can, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just getting organised and again, just planning ahead, rather than think, right, because I'm in prep, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. You can. You just got to be clever about it and just plan ahead, really.
Yeah, and so for you, obviously, you've got loads of experience with this. This has presumably come over time. When you got back into things, when you came back to bodybuilding, and you first had a family, presumably you made some mistakes on the way, and you learnt from those as well. You weren't perfect from the get-go.
Oh no, many mistakes. I mean, everything you hear and the questions I get now, and all these different methods you try, you can guarantee I've tried it all. I've brushed my teeth in lemon juice when I was a teenager because I thought I'd hold water retention. I've done some silly things. I've had cheat days where basically from 1 second past midnight right up until sort of like 11:59 I would have like a full day of just eating crap, because I'm like, right, it's a cheat day, I can get away with it. And the things I've done in the past, it's just ridiculous, really. But you learn, and then everything just comes together, and you're like, right, bodybuilding or growing muscle isn't as complicated as people make out. You've just got to stick to the basics, but do it on a consistent basis, as well as putting the effort in, basically.
Yeah, there's those underlying principles. As long as you're adhering to those, the little details matter less. So I think, there's obviously an important contrast to make between being, stage ready, contest lean, top level bodybuilder, and what most guys are aspiring to. Obviously, your prep clients want that look, but a lot of people listening are thinking, more maybe the Men's Health cover model. And if we work that back, you're having to call restaurants and plan things out. Presumably for them, if they can take that back a few notches, they can still live a social life. And there's some other strategies. For example, if they're tracking their macros, they're well on the way, but that might afford them a trip to Nando's or something. And I suppose it's a point of matching your actions to your goals, where meet yourself where you want to be, and then holding yourself accountable to that. Do you work with sort of regular guys that aren't trying to compete as well?
There's a few guys I work with who generally want to gain muscle tissue or maybe just lose body fat for a holiday. So I do work with general population as well.
Sure.
So it's a nice kind of blend really between general fat loss, muscle building, and contest prep.
Yeah.
Because competing isn't for everybody. It is an entirely different beast altogether, as you know. And not everyone wants to step on stage or go to that extreme of the contest shredded look.
Yeah. And so would you agree, though, that the principles are the same? It's just, how far you take them is the major difference there?
I think so, yeah. I think to get that kind of elite level of conditioning requires, obviously it helps if you've got muscle maturity, because a lot of, say, for example, teenagers and juniors, they think that once they get lean enough, they'll look like the pros and stuff, but they don't realise a lot of the pros are in their 30s and 40s, so they've been training a long time, so their look when they get lean will be a slightly different look to the older guys, and same with the women as well. But in terms overall, I would say it's just a case of just taking it that one level further maybe a few levels further actually for getting in that kind of contest condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another point that you touched on there was it takes time. It's not one of these, build muscle in 6 weeks type things. Building physique takes time. And it's, to be honest, something I've found is you set a goal, but you're never happy. You reach it and you always think, oh, actually, I want a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and from where I started, I thought if I get here, I'll be satisfied. Then you reach there, and it's just onwards and onwards. So
it's true, absolutely true. That
actually, and then we talked a little bit about the fact that you do natural bodybuilding, and it's just occurred to me that some people might they just know bodybuilding. They don't really they picture steroids and stuff. So can you quickly describe the difference between what they're imagining and what natural bodybuilding is?
Yeah, well, some people's perception as soon as you say the bodybuilder, they're expecting this massive bloke or kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque kind of physique, and what they don't realise, a lot of the natural bodybuilders, unless you're getting like the heavyweight guys, the guys who are naturally really, really big, like your Rich Gozecki, Gavin Gibson, your them type of guys. Whereas in clothes, we just look quite athletic, really. And personally, when I'm dieting down for a show, nobody knows I'm a bodybuilder. My neighbours and stuff like that, they can probably just think, oh, his face looks thin, and oh, is he okay?
Yeah, he's not well.
Like and they don't realise until they see you. Well, they probably don't see me, but if they saw you out of clothes, it's just entirely different because the physique just comes to life then. But a lot of perception is that if you're a bodybuilder, you're huge, but the reality is we're not huge. We're just developing our physiques to a certain look. Obviously, the guys who are assisted, it's pretty obvious. If someone's out shopping or whatever, you can normally straight away, bodybuilders stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Whereas unless you kind of wear like a really tight t-shirt or something like that, we just look like regular athletic kind of people, really. The majority of us do anyway.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. I mean, that's obviously what the vast majority of people want, is that athletic physique as opposed to the sort of freak status of like an IFBB pro. So that that's interesting, and I think hopefully it's put in context, your achievements and what sort of physique you've built. Now, you said earlier you've been doing this for a long time now, predating Instagram, Facebook, possibly basically the internet as a whole. So of course podcasts. So whereas now you can listen to all these resources, and there's 1,000,001 different pieces of info, and perhaps too much. Where were you getting your information back when you started on how to train, how to diet?
It was the old Flex magazines, Muscle Mag, the guys at the gym. I mean, to be fair, a couple of my mentors in the past, they kind of like give me some really good advice about training hard and work ethics and stuff. I didn't necessarily listen to all the advice because I was a teenager and I was kind of quite stubborn, really. I should have done, but I kind of like listened to about 50% of their advice. And what I was doing back then, I was reading through all the magazines. It was like, right, typical bro split, train a muscle group once a week. Or try this 20 set for biceps, all that kind of stuff. And I'd follow it for a few weeks, and then I'd kind of like, right, look in another magazine, oh yeah, it says this. So I'd try another routine, and it was just that circle of just kind of like, not sticking to the bare basics, progressive overload, which I learned about at high school as well. It was kind of like you learned it at high school, but then you read all these magazines, you think, actually, they know what they're doing, so I want to look like that.
Yeah.
So you'd end up following the magazines and that. And then you realise, from making the mistakes and everything, actually, it's not that complicated. Just progressive overload, basically. And just work hard and consistent for long enough, and you get the results.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with, most, say, for example, the teachers at high school or whatever, they're not as good salespeople as Flex magazine, are they? So they don't sell it in quite the same way. But yet, so, I mean, when I deal with people, the three things I tell them is to build muscle, they're going to need a calorie surplus, progressive overload, and patience and hard work. And if you do those things consistently, you'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you say, that's not really an exciting sales pitch, is it? So the put 2 inches on your arms in 2 weeks is going to be the one that grabs the attention.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that in mind, obviously your training will have evolved over the years. You're talking about things now that you've learned compared to what you're reading back in the magazines in the 90s. So can you walk us through a little bit how your training has evolved and what lessons you've learned and how you've optimized things over time?
Yeah, sure. I've noticed I started getting some real results over time when I started working muscle groups a little bit more frequently. So I'd be working muscle group twice a week rather than once a week. And then what I would be doing is really important. I'd be using a logbook, whereas years and years ago, I used to just basically go in the gym with the training partner and say, right, what we're going to do today, right? Let's do 30 rep leg presses, and it was kind of like just not having a plan when you go into the gym and just thinking, right, let's try this, let's try that, or follow the latest, trendiest program at the time. Whereas since 2007, basically, I'd try HIIT training, which was like low set, low volume, and I really enjoyed that. I got strong quite quickly from it. And then I started getting a few niggles here and there. So I found that working, say, for example, on like a push-pull leg type of split, really worked really well for me. I mean, I have seen top natural bodybuilders work off typical bro splits and progress really well from it. But for me personally, I found out the best results I got was from using a logbook, progressive overload that way, working a muscle frequently, twice a week. But most importantly, I think the quality of my training in terms of reps, every single rep, every single set has just improved so much over the years, especially the last few years of training. It's kind of like thinking about every single rep you do and making sure it's a quality rep. And I do believe that makes a difference rather than just kind of going and, just kind of like swinging the weights about and stuff like that. I mean, years ago, I always kind of like, I wouldn't say I cheated that much, but I didn't really think about what I was doing. I was kind of like, right, we're doing inclined dumbbell presses. So, right, get back, just press. Whereas now it's a lot of things I'm thinking about and making sure every rep is quality, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I think those are all great tips and a few things to pick up on there. So again, it comes back to having a plan. So not walking the gym thinking, what am I going to do today? Which I think is a mistake lots of people make, because almost certainly you're going to pick an exercise you like or that's easy. Or worst case, if you're starting out in the gym, you'll just grab the nearest bit of kit that's free and do whatever. So having a plan is essential, as with anything. Quality of the reps, so treating every repetition as a growth opportunity and maximizing every single one. Changing your frequency, so training a muscle group twice per week rather than the bro split of once per week, and then progressive overload on top of those. Once you add that into the mix as well, it all comes together. And basically, in a nutshell, that's muscle building training.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Cool.
What I also notice as well is that a lot of people who maybe I train most of the time on my own, basically in my home setup, but I do like to go to different gyms, change the scenery and stuff like that. But one thing I've noticed these days is that I might get a few questions from people saying, "Oh, I'm not getting results" and things like that. But you go in there. I mean, for example, the other week I went to a local gym. As soon as I walked in, when I started warming up, there was like 2 or 3 guys literally just sat there on their phones. One was on a leg press, just probably scrolling through social media and stuff like that. You're thinking they're probably the people who are saying they're not getting the results, but they're pissing around on the phone for like 10 minutes between sets and stuff like that. It's like, right, put your phone away unless you need it for filming, a training set or something like that, and just get the work done.
Yeah,
and just focus on that session just for that hour and a half. And then, you can go on social media or whatever after that,
Absolutely. Actually, that sort of links nicely back to that bro split and how you said you've seen some guys that have done really well on it. But, whilst we have all these principles in place, basically nothing trumps hard work. So, whilst we might decide the bro split isn't optimal, if someone goes in and attacks that really hard, works their arse off in the gym, you still can see results using that. And that's a prerequisite. I mean, your body doesn't want to build loads of muscle. You've got to force it to happen, and that comes from working really hard. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. 100% agree with that. So then just moving things on a little bit, you mentioned your home gym there, which I think is a topic I'd love to discuss, because I have some online clients and they have their home gyms, but by and large, most people they're going into commercial gyms, and some people really don't sort of seem to thrive in a commercial gym environment. Like you say, there's so many distractions, the hot chick on the cross trainer, whatever. And it becomes a bit of a social gathering. They're there to sort of hang out with mates as opposed to get results. So having a home gym can be excellent. I can also see some drawbacks with it. So can you talk us through, I mean, how long have you had yours? What sort of kit have you got in there? And how do you make it work for you?
Sure, yeah. Well, I've had my home set up for about 3.5 years now. It was basically when we moved to this house, it was an old garage. I just knocked it down, had a new one built, and it's a really long garage. So even though I was restricted on width, it was really good to fit quite a lot of kit in lengthways. So basically, I've got in there a leg press, a commercial leg press, which goes up to 500 kilos, something like that. I've got one of the PowerTech multi-leverages machines. They're fantastic. I grabbed a bargain from a guy who was moving back to Egypt. So, I mean, they're normally about $1,000 to buy. I got it for about half the price.
Right.
And one of those kind of machines, it's like a leverage. So you've got it's like a hammer strength type of pressing.
Right.
So that's really good for rowing presses, stuff like that. Then you've got the bench, which detaches. You've got a high cable, low cable for pull downs and rowing, that kind of thing. Plus, I've got attachments for leg extension, leg curl, which is great. I've got dumbbells going from half a kilo right up to the 50s. And I've got a power rack, like a half power rack, limpet bar, safety bar, glute ham raise machine. I've got a sissy squat kind of setup as well. So it is quite cluttered, but it's got everything you need basically to have a really good workout. I've got free weights, around about 500 kilos in free weights as well. So it is, obviously it's great to have loads of different machines and stuff, but 90% of my training does get done at the gym, and it's really, really good. I get to put on my own music, so I don't have to wear headphones. I'll just, my missus bought me one of them, Echo Dots. So I've got that set up now. I just say, play Metallica, and I get in my zone then, and I can just train on my own. Sometimes I might have someone join me, but you've got no distractions then whatsoever. It's just you. No matter what the weather, neither. It could be, it's snowing today. It doesn't matter because I could just pop next door and train.
Yeah.
So many, many benefits. I would say the only drawback really is that sometimes you can get a little bit of cabin fever, so you don't get to see people unless they're visiting you for training sessions. So you kind of like, sometimes it's nice to go to different gyms just for change of kit, change of scenery, and just to talk to people as well, because as you probably know as an online coach, even though you speak to people and you leave messages and Skype and stuff like that, you don't get to see that many people when you're an online coach. So I suppose that's one of the drawbacks really.
Okay. I suppose by and large that's sort of fairly specific to your situation. So for guys listening that have if they're off at work 9 to 5 type thing, and they've got their home gyms to come back to, they won't have that problem so much. So in that respect, it seems like a great setup for people if they have the space and and that sort of thing. So presumably you also didn't buy all of that right at once. You sort of built your gym up a little bit. You maybe had some foundational kit that you wanted in the first place, and tagged things on as you went. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember starting off with I bought a half rack, and I bought the selectorized dumbbells.
Yeah.
I bought one of them what goes from like 2 kilos up to 35.
Was that like a Bowflex one or something? Was
similar? Yeah. I think it was from Powerhouse at the time. Because I didn't think I had the space, so rather than have a big dumbbell rack like I've got now, it was just basically one pair of dumbbells. But a couple of my clients actually drop the dumbbells, and what you find if you drop them, it can alter the mechanism a little bit. And I thought these aren't going to last long at this rate, so I just then changed to a full set from like a half kilo going up to 50s. Got like the dumbbell racks there, and then over time I just added on just bit by bit. So I just save up a bit of money, and I'd think, right, always be on the lookout for kit second hand and stuff like that, and I just build up from there really. So when I look back on pictures of the gym when it first started, when I first had it built, it was looking quite bare, tidier, but really bare. Whereas now it's kind of like, wow, you don't realize how much kit you build up over time,
Yeah.
So you're just building bit by bit, really.
Sure. So if you were going to say to someone, right, these are the first 3 things you should get, what would you be your top picks?
Mine would be a power rack, an Olympic bar, a utility bench, so you can just go for an incline angle upright, and maybe if they got the budget for it, a pair of something like maybe some Iron Master dumbbells, because I had a pair of them as well after the selectorized one. And the Iron Masters, I don't know if you've seen them. It's like cast iron dumbbells, and like kind of like square. So you turn the mechanism at the end, pull the lever out, and then you just add plates on.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That way, and they can take some beating as well. I found they were really good, but the handles were quite long. So when I was doing pressing, they felt a little bit funny. I think it was just too long of a handle. So that's why I moved to the full set separate dumbbells. Sure. But I would say they're definitely the basics where they can get some fantastic results. So free weights, just sticking to the basics, because you can deadlift then, you can squat, you can bench, you can press, and you can do multitude of exercises with it,
Yeah, and for the average guy, you can build a great physique with those exercises. The other stuff that gets you those few extra percent, but 80-90% of your results or whatever are going to come from those exercises anyway. So invest in those.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. I mean, you could have all the kit in the world, but if you're not doing it correctly and doing them quality reps, it doesn't mean a thing,
Mm. Yeah, which is so it's important to actually have some people or build up some experience of how to train properly. Obviously, you learnt that in other gyms first, and through some mentors and things, people teaching you like that. But it shows the value of going to someone who knows what they're doing and sort of fast tracking your results there. So whether that be a coach or training at a gym where people actually have achieved what you want to achieve, seeking them out, which I suppose. I don't know how, was there quite a community of bodybuilding gyms around your area when you were growing up?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, back then there was, it's still going now, but there was Silver's Gym, there was Derby's Gym. There was a little bit of rivalry there, but they were the two main gyms, and they were, you get, just recreational trainers training there, but you would also, there would be bodybuilding gyms. And then when you walked into them, it could be quite intimidating being a first timer, but they were all really, really friendly guys, and they were all supportive, and it was like a family community, which is a lot different from now, because obviously there's that many gyms now, 24-hour gyms, and it's kind of more kind of corporate than it was back then,
Yeah, I find that a lot of the big commercial gyms now, I mean, they're quite soulless places. You don't, as you say, everyone's got a headphone in because the playlist they have is terrible, so everyone's got to listen to something. No one makes eye contact, and whilst in some respects, that's good because people can just focus on their own thing. It also, means it's not a great environment for encouraging you to come back and building community. Which, for example, CrossFit has done a great job of it. The people that go there, they love it. It's like their third place or whatever. They've got work and home, and then they get there. And that's something definitely. I think gyms could really improve upon by making that kind of community feel and make it a place of enjoyment as well as results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a little bit different. I mean, you do get the odd gym still. To be honest with you, I still train at Silver's, and when I went in there, I always bring a client to train there sometimes as well. And I kind of explain to how it used to be, and even that's changed now. Not that it's gone corporate, it's just that you don't see that many guys competing and things like that now. It's the culture's changed a little bit. And people competing, it's just kind of like, I think it's slightly less percentage in them kind of gyms now than there used to be,
Right. So whereas before, did it feel like there was almost always someone prepping for a show, whereas now they're a bit more few and far between?
Yeah, it's kind of like just separated now. Whereas I remember when I first stepped foot in the gym, and it was what made me enter the first competition, the Mr. Berry show. I remember going in there, and there must have been probably between about 5 or 6 guys, all training the vests, tank tops at the time, all training for the Mr. Berry competition, different categories, all different ages. There was a couple of females training for figure and the bodybuilding. It was just that close-knit community. And then you got Derby's gym, and there's a few guys training there for the competition. And it was quite a small world, really, back then. Whereas kind of like everyone knew each other and stuff like that, and it was just nice, kind of family supportive atmosphere,
And also, presumably, because they all had those goals they were working for, competitive goals, they were hyper focused and they were getting great results.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Obviously, it was less sciencey back then, but they all still look great, you know.
Because whilst the natural bodybuilding scene, seems to have really exploded lately, and it's much bigger than it was a few years ago. It's not huge now, and I think most guys in the gym, they're kind of perhaps training, they're bodybuilding in as much as they want to improve their physique, but they're not competing. And then maybe just that competitive element to drive them on to the next level is one of the things holding them back from getting the results they aspire to.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, there's nothing better for motivation than having a show to do, because as you know, it just takes it to another level where you know you've got a target date, you have to be on the game, then you have to be spot on with what you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to show when you step on that stage.
Mm-hmm. So with your people that are not prepping for shows, how do you go about sort of keeping them really focused, really hungry to get results and setting goals if that goal is not a competition?
With some of them, I find that when they see pictures of us or the people competing, it gives them inspiration, because they know they don't have to go to that level of conditioning, but they see on the different stages of us when we're in prep that they think, actually, when you're, say, 12 to 15 weeks out from a contest, they think, actually, that's the kind of look I want to go for. So we kind of like motivate them to get the results as well. And when you see someone, for example, one of the clients, Ryan, when you see him add, say, for example, 30 kilos onto his deadlift over a period of, say, 2 blocks of 8, it's kind of like that's motivation for him enough to think, actually, well, I've been through this fat loss phase now that I'm in a gaining phase, and I'm seeing these results, and every time I hit the gym, I'm adding a little bit more weight to the bar or adding a rep or two, and that for them is enough, just keep them fired up and motivated. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, progress is one of the best builders of motivation. It seems it's almost like a snowball effect, isn't it? As you make a bit, you want more, which is, so when I'm working with people, often I'm setting goals, like performance goals within the gym, adding X amount to these lifts. Now, whilst stepping on stage, that isn't quite as directly correlated as, say, it would be for a power lifter. Do you find there's value in that, in terms of trying to set some rep PBs, maybe like a 6 rep max or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because to see someone when they first step foot in, well, if they've been training a while, but they can, say, for example, the bench press, they're doing 8 kilos for 10 reps or something like that. And then if they say, right, oh yeah, I'd love to get 2 plates aside, a 100 kilo bench press, and you'll say, well, actually, we can get there in between 8 and 16 weeks. Go on this strength program, maybe undulating split type of thing, and all of a sudden, when they do the AMRAPs, as many reps as possible with the given weight, all of a sudden, like, whoa, I beat it from the first week. So, right, let's see how the next training block goes. And then if I give them targets and then weights to lift, they're like, well, it might scare them a bit, but then when they reach them lifts, they think, whoa, I've come a long way in these last 8 weeks or 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, when you're programming for people slightly over the long haul, do you undulate between phases where you may be a bit more of a strength focus, and the rep ranges come down, but you push intensity up a little bit, and other phases where there's more volume going on and that sort of thing? Is that one of the ways you work?
So for example, what's important to me as well is that the client actually enjoys the training as well, because if I give a client a strength block kind of program, and then they see the strength gains, and then they run it for a second 8-week cycle, for example, mesocycle, and then they might kind of like do 2 mesocycles, and they might think, actually, I'm kind of missing other kind of training split, even though they're doing accessories and stuff like that they kind of deadlifting or squatting multiple times a week can get a little bit monotonous for them. Mm-hmm. So they're like, right, I've got to a certain strength level now, so can we move over to just a typical push-pull leg split? And I say, yeah, we can do that, but what we'll do is you've got that strength now on your deadlift and squat and bench, for example. So what we're going to do is the directions change a little bit. So the routine's different, but we've still got the bread and butter stuff in there.
Yeah.
So we're still lifting heavy, but you've got that a little bit more variety where we might just do, say, squatting once a week and deadlifting once a week rather than multiple times a week, for example, because that strength's there, then they've kept it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's the other thing. There's to some extent, people have the misconception that there's just strength training and there's just hypertrophy training, and that it's actually more on a slightly there's a continuum, and you can work your way along and in between, picking your poison a little bit based on your goals or what you enjoy.
Yeah.
And also one of the biggest factors is, that your adherence to a plan, and so you have to consider what do you enjoy most. So I've got, for example, some guys they just love at least hitting something heavy. So whatever phase we're in, we'll be working on one lift where they're kind of in like 5 or 6 rep range, just so they get to feel some heavy weights, even if the rest of the session's slightly higher volume. And I think that's important when you're working with someone, or if you're planning your own training, make it enjoyable.
Yeah, because if they enjoy it, they're going to adhere to it for a longer period.
Yeah, and then if you're consistently doing, following the principles, you get results.
Yeah, I mean, conversely, you do get people who kind of want a new training program every couple of weeks, and it's like you probably get them with your clients. They're kind of like, "Oh, do we need to change anything?" It's like, well, no. I mean, I know some people who stick to a similar kind of setup routine for like a full year, and they got great results from it. But obviously, if you're that type of person who gets bored quickly, we might be able to change 1 or 2 exercises, but if it's working and you're enjoying the movement and that movement's feeling good for you personally, and you're getting on with it, you're applying the load to the muscle, then why would you want to change the exercise,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we talked earlier about some of the mistakes you've made, and one that I know I made was varying things too often, because, I'd read that you needed to vary things and different people to give you different time frames. And what I found is it kind of gave me the illusion of progress, because you go into a new exercise, and in the first few weeks you're doing something, obviously you're kind of learning the movement patterns. So you think, I'm making incredible progress here, because 3-4 weeks you're adding weight to the bar, but then all of a sudden it plateaus and then you switch again. And actually you're never really applying that progressive overload, which we've discussed as being really important, because you've been chopping and changing exercises and rep schemes and all these variables that you think are vital. But if you'd have done the boring stuff consistently, you'd have got way better results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes I did make. I mean, I do change movements from time to time if I'm not quite getting on with them, or there's a niggle or something like that. But the bread and butter stuff does tend to keep with me, because it's what it just feels right. You've got a good connection with the movement, and it's if it's something you can progress on, keep it in there, definitely.
Yeah, as well, while you're making progress, why change it, sort of thing. So have you found over the years you've worked out there's certain exercises that seem to be just like they suit you, they suit your structure, and they're almost like your indicator lifts that are really indicating where you're making progress?
For example, I always thought, you've got to barbell squat all the time. You got to, week in, week out. You see people, squatting 4 plates plus, and you're thinking, I've got to push to that. But in fact, nowadays, probably for this year, I've not barbell squatted. I tried the safety bar, and still, I just didn't get that good connection with it. On the barbell back squat, I found that I would say do say 350 pounds for reps, no problem. And then when I got more towards 4-plate squat, like 400 pound weight, my form just shifted a little bit, and I felt like it was getting to my back a little bit more, and it was coming away from my legs. And I thought to myself, well, my leg development is quite decent anyway, so I thought there's other things I can do which are going to load the muscle without getting that pressure from the back squat. I mean, I did like to back squat when I got to a certain weight, but then it was like a love-hate relationship, where I thought when I got to a certain weight it just weren't happening. It just changed it completely. So I thought, right, well, you don't actually have to squat. I mean, fortunately I do love to deadlift, so I'll do like a sumo deadlift, Romanian deadlift. Currently in my program I've done the regular deadlifts as well, which I get on with really well. Incline dumbbell press is another good one for me. Weighted dips is another one what I can get on really well with. I've scrapped the military barbell press just because of my shoulder issue. I've got a bicep tendon inflammation a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I found that when I got to a certain weight on barbell pressing as well, it was a case of I found my elbow was shifting out slightly. So I was like, well, I'm a bodybuilder here, so I'm trying to hit the muscle as much as possible. But when things start mechanically changing, I either need to address it, maybe sort of like work on mobility, or just think, right, okay, let's find another alternative what's still going to do the job, basically.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting and useful information. It's probably, to some extent, it's the failure of people to really detailedly explain what progressive overload is, because of course we talked about it and immediately people think weight on the bar, so people do start chasing weight on the bar, and like you said, they chase that 4-plate squat or whatever. But actually, as far as building physique, progressive overload is, you know, a greater challenge on the muscle. One way you can achieve that is by adding weight, but not if you compensate your form or whatever. You know, you can of course do more sets, more reps, you know, all these other variables. It's not only a case of move weight from A to B and move as much weight as possible. It's like, you know, challenge your muscle as much as possible. It sounds like that's something that you've sort of really found. And when you're talking about the quality of rep, I think that's probably, you know, very closely linked into that.
Absolutely. I mean, for example, I can overload the chest, get the load onto the chest through, say, like a hammer strength type leverage press in comparison to a flat barbell bench press. So in the past, where I was working through a strength phase, I got up to maybe a 3-plate bench for, I think I got 3 reps out. This was a few years back. And then now I probably wouldn't even dream of touching that weight because of my shoulder issue, but I managed to find a substitute, like for example a weighted dip or a leverage chest press where I can keep the shoulders pinned back and lock myself in. And all of a sudden, the way my chest feels afterwards compared to a bench press, I feel I get a lot more stimulus from it.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I can think of certain examples very similar to myself which suit me better. And I think there's part of this is it's just a learning process. You have to do stuff to find out what does work, what doesn't, and then and make sensible adjustments, not be blinded by dogma and think I have to do these exercises. There's no mandatory exercises, but also you have to be prepared to invest a bit of time and thinking behind it, or get someone to do that thinking for you. So when you're working with someone, how quickly or how does it process go? Do you kind of have like these are the core exercises that I go from, and then from there we adjust and tweak things based on their response and some feedback?
Yeah, I mean, for example, if it's a brand new client and they've never squatted before or anything like that, I will assess them first just to do a bodyweight squat, and then we might move over to maybe a dumbbell goblet squat, check the position and things like that. Like one client, for example, she's got such tight ankles and she previously sprained her ankle and stuff like that, and you could just tell the mobility. She had too much forward lean with her upper torso. So we scrap the barbell back squat and we substitute that for a safety bar. And as soon as she does safety bar, she just gets a better range of motion.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll assess the client's mobility and how they get on with that movement. And then I'll assess them whether that exercise is suitable for them or not. And if it isn't, and I give it to them and say initially, I can just always substitute and say, right, okay, let's substitute this exercise for another one instead. And as long as they're getting a good connection, overloading the muscle, then it's going to work fine. You know.
So I mean, sorry, carry on.
So I was going to say I always emphasize, progressing on the big lifts. It's great if you can squat, deadlift, bench, overhead press, and all of that, as well as your other stuff. But sometimes, it's not the be all and end all that you have to do these specific 4 exercises. Some people might not get on well with a flat bench. They might benefit well from maybe a dumbbell press instead. So it's not set in stone that you have to do them lifts.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listener, do you have any sort of takeaway guidelines that they can put into practice if they're thinking, okay, is this a good exercise for me? What's the sort of thought process that they should be going through, or the questions they should be asking themselves to make that decision?
Yeah, well what I would advise them to do first is absolutely 100% nail the form first. And then, so don't start off on the weights, what are a little bit heavy, if the form's shifting a little bit. Yeah. And then gauge how they feel after they've completed that set. So if they want to add muscle and they want to bodybuild, say, for example, if they want to bring up, the glutes and hamstrings, then it might be a good alternative for them to do, say, a Romanian deadlift instead of maybe a full deadlift. They might just get out better with that because they can, drop the hips back, then slow down the negative, take the load on the hamstrings and glute, drive it up, and they might get a better connection. So what I would say, give the movements a try. Take your time with the reps, build up your rep cadence, for example. So I wouldn't say going too slow, but just build enough on the negative portion that you actually feel the muscle working, and then just see how it feels after you finish the set. And if it feels good, you're feeling it in the target muscle, then great, stick with it, progress on it, use the logbook. But if you're feeling, say if you're doing a row, but you're feeling it more in your rear delts or your biceps or your forearms, you can't feel your lats whatsoever, that's when you have to address, right, what's going on? Is it because of my biomechanics? Or is it simply, am I going too fast or too slow? So this is a time where it's good to invest in a good coach, or at least watch a few videos to how people are lifting.
Yeah.
Because we've got to bear in mind when we're trying to progress and stuff like that, we're not weightlifters. We're trying to build our physiques. We're not just lifting a weight from A to B.
Yes, 100%. I think that's a vital takeaway for people to understand and not let their ego take over, and try and impress anyone with the weights they're lifting. Make sure they're challenging the muscle as much as possible. Yeah. So, is that all? You've obviously mastered this yourself in terms of applying it yourself and helping other people. Is this stuff that you've just learned from experience, or have you been? Have you studied with certain people that have helped guide your way on this?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few people over the years kind of guide me on the way. People I've trained with, you pick up stuff as well. For example, Eric Helms has coached me in the off season in the past. I've had quite a few mentors, fortunately, kind of like where they'll be able to sort of like, I'll be able to pick up little bits from different people on the way, training partners, things like that. And what I've found as well, because picking up a few niggles, you kind of think, right, how am I going to find a way to train around this? So basically, it's just enforced that it's so important to lock your form in to work the target muscle. So, for example, if you're really you're completing a set and you think, right, have I got one more rep in me? You go for it. As soon as you feel your form shifting, if you think it's going to injure you or aggravate something, then you pushed it too far. But if you can lock yourself in and force yourself in to go for that one more rep, then that works really well. And that's what's forced me now, kind of injury prevention as well as getting older, is just to lock that form in. I mean, there is a time and a place where you can use just a little bit of body language for a couple of movements just to get that extra rep. But, I think over the years and learning from people, just picking up little bits here and there, as well as experience on yourself, like, say, injury prevention, stuff like that, you just become better at it, really.
That's interesting you say. So you as a coach, you've hired a coach, you work with Eric Helms. So when was that?
It was a few years back, actually. I think it was, let me think, 2014, I think it was, for the off season. So yeah, I mean, basically in the circle of people into the bodybuilding and that, I've kind of worked with a few people over the years, and it's just a case of some people think, oh yeah, I'm a coach, I shouldn't need a coach, but I do think coaches need coaches, because when you're coaching people, sometimes you don't give yourself enough time and development. But if you go to other coaches as well, for me, it just, you're still learning everything, but you can take snippets from a lot of people, I think. In this game as well, you can never stop learning.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great tip. And, number one, they hold you accountable, which is great. But also, nobody knows everything. So if you can be bringing in, expertise from elsewhere, it'll only enhance your results. And again, it's a case of, whilst we're talking about in the gym, not letting your ego take over, not having such a big ego, you think no one else could possibly know how to coach me type thing. I think that's a great tool too.
Yeah, it can be an obstacle for some people, because they'll have even people who aren't trainers, and they think, oh, I don't need a coach, I know what I'm doing. But it's the ego sometimes, which actually, I mean, I get it if people haven't got the budget to hire a coach, but with some people, they kind of, if you think you know it all, then really you don't, because even the top coaches out there will never admit to knowing it all. And there's always something you can improve on all the time.
Yeah,
it's that constant improvement, really, which gets you to where you want to be. And sometimes you've got to be honest and analyse, okay, you've had this success, but what can I do to get better at something? And it's just being honest with yourself and taking that critique as well, which will develop yourself more,
Yeah, well, I mean, you certainly, sometimes you'll have taken yourself as far as you can go, and you need that extra expertise. I mean, like, Roger Federer's an incredible tennis player, and at times he's a coach, but other times he's not, and he's been able to sort of pick and choose, and I suppose in some respects that's how you go about things now. Are you your own coach now?
I am at the moment, yeah. when I've been in preps in the past, I've had a couple of friends who are go-to guys, for example, just to, if I've got an idea about something, or I send some progress pictures, just to kind of that reassurance, say, do you think I'm looking on target, things like that, or do you think I'm looking flat? Do you think I need more carbs? So I can never rely on myself entirely just to say, actually, yeah, I need more carbs, or I'm looking flat and this and that. So I do have a couple of people I go to, but regards for coaching, for my own training, stuff like that, I've had a friend of mine just say, basically because I just wanted, over Christmas I was busy and I just wanted someone just to put a program together for me. So my friend of mine who's also a pro did that for me. I looked at it, I tried it, and then I've just changed a few things. So sometimes, yeah, it's good just to have someone else just to, and it's accountability as well, you know.
Yeah. And someone that take that objective view, because changing your physique for most people is a really emotional thing, and it's hard to think clearly when you're so emotionally invested in it, that just having someone else's outside eyes can do wonders.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what level you're at, even the top pros, the chances are, even though they don't have a direct coach, they'll probably have someone they go to just to say whether they're on track or they're a little bit behind and stuff like that. Okay.
Brilliant. Well, we're sort of closing up on time here, so don't want to keep you too long. Got a few sort of quick fire questions to work our way through. So first one is there something you could tell us about you that people probably don't know? People that follow you online wouldn't know about you?
It caught me off guard.
Yeah, drop you in that one.
I play electric guitar.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Not very good. But my missus bought me one the other year, and before Max came along, and I practiced. I got a little bit better at lessons, and then as soon as Max came along, I'd not touched it for over a year.
It's amazing
and
how
I just got back into it again. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I do miss it because I love rock and metal and stuff like that. I don't practice as often as I could do, but yeah, I do love guitar. I do like cigars as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Not many people know that. Miss isn't happy about it, but I've just recently I tried a cigar a few years ago and I enjoyed it, and then I just thought, right, a friend of mine, my brother-in-law actually, bought me one for my 40th the other year, and I'd not opened it for ages. I kept saying, right, when Max is born, I'll light it up, and I didn't. So anyway, at Christmas I tried it. I thought, yeah, I like this. So once a week I just kind of nip outside for a bit of a cigar.
So I'm not too sure, but that could get quite an expensive habit, couldn't it?
It could do, yeah. I've got to be careful with that, but decent sized cigar will probably last about an hour and a half. So I'll just nip out for 10-15 minutes, and then it'll just be it'll last me all year probably.
Fair enough. Make it last. So okay, so some quick fire questions for you here. Basically either ors. So pizza or burger?
Burger.
Chocolate or peanut butter?
Chocolate.
Full English or a Sunday roast?
Sunday roast.
Yeah, okay. A beach holiday or a city break?
City break.
And then steak, rare or well done?
Rare.
Winning, mate. I don't think I can disagree with any of those answers. Excellent stuff. All right. Well, we're closing up right on an hour there. So thanks very much for your time. Can you tell the listeners where's the best place to find out a little bit more about you if they're interested in online coaching or just knowing a bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, my website's www.damianleestailerfitness.co.uk. On social channels, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So Instagram, I'm on as Coach Team Lees WNBF Pro on there, and then it's Damian Lees Taylor Fitness, or just get Damian Lees on Facebook. So I've got a business page and a personal page there. So that's the main channels really.
Okay. Brilliant. Right, we'll make sure that when the show notes go up and everything, those are listed and people can find you there. So that's, unless there's anything else I've missed that you really want to cover, that's a wrap from my end.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me on, and I've enjoyed talking about the old days and stuff like that. And I love to talk shop anyway about bodybuilding and training. So yeah, it's thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. I think it'd be a fascinating insight and certain elements that people won't have realised, plus some just really valuable takeaways for their training. So I think loads of useful content there for the listeners. So thanks very much.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Cheers.
That wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. We really appreciate it. If you enjoyed what you heard and took value from it, please do me a favour by heading to iTunes right now, subscribing to the show, and leaving a review. Positive reviews, like 5 stars, hint hint, really help the ranking of the show and will help us to spread the word and keep getting top-class guests on. Make sure to follow Breaking Muscle on social media and me at Tom McCormick, that's TOMMACCORMICK on Instagram. Bye for now, and I'm looking forward to catching you on the next episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast.